everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Premier League panel show. We have a full panel again this week. I'm your host, as always, Timuchin with Liverpool here. Glenn with Brentford. Shay is back with Villa. Jamie's back Chelsea. And Alan, because Arsenal won, is back with us as well this week. So you can just bet on it. If you don't know the schedule, just look at what Arsenal did. If they won, you know Alan is going to be on the show. So welcome aboard, gentlemen. A lot to get to, even though it is international break. I want to kind of go with the games first, and then we'll kind of get into some of like the other topics that's coming on and some of the stuff that came out of this weekend's game as well. We'll start right off the bat over here. If I look at the right week, that would definitely help the cause. But Crystal Palace 0, Liverpool 1. I don't know. I mean, when we get to Shay and like Alan and stuff, I want to ask you guys too. But it looked like all the teams that were in Europe kind of like struggled a little bit. They needed a rotation and all that kind of stuff. So the scoreline actually makes it look like it was trickier. I thought it should have been a lot easier. We should have finished, but then Liverpool hang on, 3 points. We will get to, because I want to get your guys' take on what you look from your team in terms of getting the 3 points. So you're looking at the play or whatever. But 3 points, I'm happy. Top of the league. It was good to kind of get that 4 point gap and sit back and see what everybody is going to do. And honestly, for a second, it was looking like there was going to be some struggles. Like Alan, Arsenal 3, Southampton 1. It definitely was not as easy as anybody thought. I mean, I personally expected Arsenal, it's Southampton to cruise past and score 4 or 5 goals and kind of like head on to the international break. Are you shocked with how much you guys struggled ultimately to get that goal?
I personally thought we were fine. I was never worried, never in doubt, never afraid of that scoreline. Never afraid, as always. No, it actually was worrying when they scored that first goal. I like to be the calming person in the pub, and like everyone's going, "Oh shit, we're screwed," and then meanwhile I'm just going like, "Yeah, we'll be fine. And sure enough, we found our form. We found our way back into the net, and Kai Havertz and Martinelli, and then Saka finishing it off. Like Saka has been by far one of the best players in the league, not just in Arsenal alone. Like the way that he's just been, diming the ball for these assists and everything, and getting his goals in. I mean, he's gotten 2 already this season. I know it's far off, eight away from Erling Haaland, but whatever. Either way, he's finding a way to like contribute to the team and contribute to scoring.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When I saw 0-0 late in the game, I was like, really? And then obviously it came across. But is that a Europe effect, do you think, in terms of like, did you see a Europe effect on the team? Because obviously you guys had a tough game, even though yours was Tuesday, right?
Yeah, ours was Tuesday. I think whenever you play in Europe and you're playing tough opponents like PSG, never mind the fact that we put them away 2-0, it's going to be tough to come back on that Saturday or Sunday, even if you're playing on Tuesday, especially when we're still missing Odegaard. Odegaard, for one, is the one that's going to unlock defenses with the way he passes. And he's also a scoring threat whenever he does get in the box and someone finds him. So I think it's a little bit of little fatigue, because we did have like I think 6 matches in 2 weeks almost, and then on top of that we're missing Odegaard. We're missing Timber. We were missing White. I think we should get at least White and Timber back by the next week, and we're still waiting on Odegaard to come back in like a couple 2 to 4 weeks. So we'll see. I'm not too terribly worried. It is what it is with the injuries and the amount of games that we played so far early in the season.
Yeah, it's gonna. I mean, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think we all know it's only gonna get worse as we head on over to like December and January and stuff like that. Especially, and then we'll get to Villa and like teams that are maybe not as deep squads. I mean, God knows Chelsea has 85 guys that they can choose from, but not every team kind of like has that. So, Brentford 5, Wolves 3. Dude, I was watching Goal Rush. It looked like we were watching more of the Brentford game than anything else, because they kept cutting back over there. Exciting game. I mean, that's the kind of like the brand of. Are you shocked that you guys allowed 3 goals? I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because yes, it was a game very much of two halves in the way I thought about it. Because for one, we scored 5 goals in any league. That's crazy. We had the highest XG of any team in the top flights of Europe's top leagues for this weekend. So we could have had more. I mean, my player of the match was Sam Johnson in goal for Wolves because I thought he was working so hard. I mean, we were just front foot football once again. It was quite funny actually. When it passed 1 minute, a Wolves fan online who maybe runs a forum or whatever, they posted, they're like, not this weekend, and they were joking about it. And then 16 seconds later, we did score. They probably hit send, and by the time it was published, we had scored. So that was fun. And we did it just from the kickoff as well. When we conceded, we scored a follow-up goal within a minute as well. So, we look really on fire. We start games, again, front foot football. We start really positively. And yeah, again, as good as we were, Wolves were abysmal. So that's part of it. I mean, their defending was awful. So they haven't actually kept a clean sheet in the league since February. And that was against Sheffield United, who couldn't buy goals last season. So Wolves look a real mess. I couldn't believe they were trying zonal marking in the corners. And zonal marking, when done well, okay, I understand the concept behind it. But when it's done badly, and you have people who are unmarked in zonal areas, like Ethan Pinnock, who's like, 6'5", and he is just allowed. There were 2 crosses from Damsgaard, went straight onto his head. The first he misjudged, the second he scored. And this was like a common thread throughout this game was us just putting balls into the box, them being completely unsure how to deal with the cross. I mean, honestly, whenever we went forward, we looked like scoring, which was great from our perspective. And, we shared the goals round, a couple in defense, Collins, Pinnock, couple in midfield, Norgard with that instant third goal, I think it was, and then Mbeumo with the penalty, and Carvalho with the Liverpool connection getting his first league goal for us, which was a nice touch. But, I will also say, to speak to your point, defensively, we were really poor. And I don't know if you guys have seen the highlights, but all the goals were preventable. The second goal, Collins passes it straight to the forward who crosses it for the goal. Yep. And that third goal for them, I don't know if any of you have seen that, but we're just completely sleeping. The game is still being played, and Out-Nori just gets the ball, he looks up, and he just runs. He just runs forward and then kicks it through Flecken's legs. So I will say, as delighted as I am about the goals, and hey, you got to celebrate anytime you score 5 goals in the Premier League. Are you kidding me? However, you shouldn't really be too pleased with conceding 3 goals. And honestly, a team that had maybe, a bit more confidence, especially up front, or especially defensively, a team that's more rigorous defensively, we're not going to score 5, but it looks like we could concede 3 against anyone. So that was the flip side for me. But hey, I'm just going to celebrate a really memorable win.
Yeah, I mean, they're a fun team. You guys are a fun team to watch. Where's Alex when you need him so he could just throw up out of it? But speaking of Alex, Manchester City 3, Fulham 2. And I think somebody in the panel last week picked this game as an upset possibility.
That was me.
Right?
That was me.
Honestly, it looked like it. If Adama Traore spends more time working on finishing instead of oiling himself, I think we were going to get somewhere there because he did, especially when it was 1-0, he had a clear-cut chance he could have finished. But sadly, this is a Fulham issue, and hopefully next week Alex will be here and we'll talk a little bit about it. But and that's why I didn't go for them because I feel like they're always so naive. I wish sometimes, hopefully not against us, but I wish sometimes Fulham would just pull a Forest and sit back and do what they have to get the points. It's just I know it's not the Silva way, but I feel like they would get more points. But hey, it's a team that's doing really well. At one point, when they had the lead, I think they were like 4th or 5th or something like that in the standings, like as of things were now. So I'm sure he's happy with the start overall. West Ham 4, Ipswich Town 1. I don't know why Ipswich insist on building from the back, just insist on it, and then keeps getting punished for it. Leicester City 1, Bournemouth 0, Everton 0, Newcastle 0. For a 0-0 game, that was actually quite entertaining. I'll tell you what wasn't entertaining, Shay, because we did a live watch along for this game because I figured, we figured it's the least we can do to show our respects for Ten Hag on his way out. He has given us some great moments. We're like, hey, you know what? We should do a live watch along for this. And I'm not one of those guys that it's like, it was 0-0, such a boring game. But, man, that was such a sloppy game, both sides. I mean, we kind of expect that from United. Are you kind of shocked, or is that the Europe effect for you guys that it looked so sloppy?
Yeah, I would acquaint a little bit of Europe. getting 3 players hurt mid-match against Bayern definitely hurt. Like I said, we don't have the depth there yet. They're getting there. But like I said, boring. I woke up at 8 a.m. to watch that after going out the night before. Really loved waking up early and then falling right back asleep and then waking up and nothing happened. So that was really nice. But it was just,
celebrating that Bayern game still.
Yeah, so the Bayern game and, hold this winning. So there we are. But the amount of red cards, the refereeing, I will say, was probably the biggest issue. I think both Ten Hag and Emery were both not very happy with the VAR and the actual reffing team. But just to come out with a point was nice. I was hoping
I know we were
that
talking
Ten
about
Hag
the live
would have gotten
broadcast.
fired that day. That had been the icing on the cake after all the misery that they've given us. We were the team to get him fired, but he survived another 2 weeks.
As a Villa game, do you kind of look at that though as, man, that's 2 points lost at home?
I would say in the last couple of years, we've finally been able to compete with United. Like there's been years where we've always gone up, and then United have somehow found a way to come back and beat us. So it would have been nice to finally beat them, especially when they're in this terrible run of form with Ten Hag. Because you never know, they bring in the coach and they finally get it set. Then we missed the opportunity to beat them while everybody else is beating them.
I think Villa's giving us a favor. Villa's trying to keep Ten Hag in the job as long as they can. Too, United need one result, and then every so often they can fall back and continue that wool being pulled all over their fans' eyes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I was really hoping for a good game, and it was a win-win for us Liverpool fans because either Villa was going to hammer and we were just going to laugh at United, or United was going to win and we were going to be like, "Hey, Ten Hag is staying," and we were going to celebrate. But yeah, it was a tough watch, especially the first half. Second half opened up a bit more. It looked like Villa woke up a little more than anything else. But yeah, that ref, man. I memean, we were talking about on the live watch along too that he kind of tries to show off the biceps with those yellow cards, and he just constantly just kind of like unnecessary yellow cards and like skipping on needed ones. Yeah, it was a poorly ref game.
Rashford should have been sent off, but the United tax was there. They gave it to him, and then literally 2 minutes later he goes and puts another foul. I'm like, come on! Like,
I am against
put him
that.
Out of his misery and take him out. Like it was.
I'm against that warning after the yellow. Like yellow is the warning, isn't it? Like I mean, I know they don't want to like affect the game and impact the game, blah blah blah. But that's on the player, kind of like what's Rice did, and whatever Arsenal players do to get red cards. Right? Am I right?
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering. You're good with. You're okay with the warning.
No, you're not okay. I don't like those warnings.
Okay.
Like, if you do it, yellow is your freaking warning. Like, usually you get warned, then you get the yellow. Yellow is pretty much your final warning. Next step should be red. I mean, why pull the guy aside one more time and be like, hey, I don't want to. That's basically saying, man, I really don't want to give you a red card, but you're making it tough on me, kind of a thing. Just show him the freaking. If he deserves it, show it. Because I think, this is when other teams complain about like the big six and stuff like that. Because I think if it was the other way around, more than Glenn is like, yes, it would be like a red card instantly, which is not right. Or maybe if it's like an Arsenal player. But Chelsea won, Forest won. Jamie, what happened over there?
One of you guys said that this was going to be tough for Chelsea, and it was. I don't know if you guys saw the game. It probably lost points, to be honest, especially when they were down to 10 men after James Ward-Prowse thought he was a goalkeeper, or Steven Gerrard, one of the two. We wasted so many chances. If we were more clinical, we could have probably scored 4 or 5. But also, they both sides could have won it at the end. It was a really exciting game, to be honest. And I think 1-1's probably fair. They played well, and as did we. We should have closed out the game and didn't. Cole Palmer had a Bergkamp-esque chance, and then 2 follow-up saves from Sells. But kind of on the balance, I'd say in 23, this could have been a game that we lost. We dominate the first half. We go 1 behind. We're a young, naive team. We can't break down the low block, and suddenly we lose the game. I think we've shown a little bit of progress to get back in it and show potential to win it. But it really echoes Maresca's comments before the game, where he was really trying to distance Chelsea from called Man United. We are distant from Man United. We've graduated from being a band.
Everybody is distant from
But
here.
we're distanced from City, from Liverpool and Arsenal, because that's a game that a title challenger wins. And Chelsea's a bit young, a bit naive, and we still quite haven't worked out how to beat every different type of team. Brighton made it very easy for us last week. Complete breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This week was a little more challenging, and we just didn't quite have the ability to break them down, even though we missed probably 3 sitters. On balance, fair result, and I think we're 4th heading into the international break. I would take that.
How do when he makes those comments, how do most Chelsea fans take that as well? I mean, like on paper, it makes sense, but do you have fans saying, how are you going to distance yourself that much? We've spent like $85 billion in the last 2 weeks, kind of a deal.
Most fans, I think, have been of the opinion that we shouldn't be spending as much as we have been, and it's also laughable that we have been spending it, but have been able to separate what the board, the owners have been doing in terms of just playing fantasy football and what we've been watching on the pitch, which has been less than stellar for the past 18 months. So the fact that we've got it together, I think we're optimistic, but we're also realistic, knowing that we're a pretty good team. For the last year, we are on balance the 4th best team, if you include the last half of Pochettino's season in 23 and the first half of this game. But we are not anywhere near as good as Man City. We have our moments, and hopefully towards the end of the season, we're going to be fighting for the Champions League places with Villa, with Spurs, with Newcastle, and hopefully finish at the top of that kind of second tier of the Premier League. Any higher than that, I think, will be a complete bonus.
I mean, I was going to say, because probably Champions League is crucial for the money spent and the wages and stuff like that for like next year, I would think. And I don't know, is it 5 teams this year, or are we still stuck with 4?
Still stuck with 4.
Still stuck with 4. Okay,
Yeah.
Which works for us. Hopefully, you won't have to worry about that
Just
the way
keep
things are
it.
going. You never know. But speaking of worrying, and you can tell Jay's there. Brighton
Jay hasn't been here for a while.
It's kind of like, that's what I mean. Like, I just look at the schedule to know who's going to appear on Tuesdays. Brighton 3, Tottenham 2. Man, that was a tough one. And I honestly, like, when I turned it on, I was like, oh, I'm kind of like shocked. And then it's kind of changed at halftime. I don't know if you guys got to watch that game, but it did become pretty Spursy. I don't know. So you did watch the game. Okay. But yeah, it did become pretty Spursy at the end. I mean, I really like Ang and like the stuff he says, but what do you guys, I mean, I'll throw it in the middle, whoever wants to jump in, but is that just the Spurs thing? Is that just almost like semi-built into this team? Because you can't say growing pains at this stage, because this is what, like the 3rd season, right? What is it that's... God, whenever Shay's in here, it feels like we're really beating down Spurs. But what is it that makes Spurs Spursy?
Well, I'll just say lack of composure. Like, you're up 2-0 at the half, like, hey, we got this, and then completely just imploded afterwards. I don't know what happened to him. Like I said, with Hank, I think it's his 3rd year, isn't it? It is his 3rd, but
I think it is 3rd. Yeah, and I don't know, it might have been like 2.5 or something.
They're
like
in
that.
They're in that point where like they have good players, but I feel like they're spending money on some that they shouldn't. Like, I mean, Solanke, he's done well, but to pay whatever ridiculous price they paid for him, they could have probably spread that around. And I think another issue is like they're getting old. Like, I mean, I love Heung-min Son. I think he is still a world-class player, but pushing the 30, whatever, you can't keep relying on him. So they got to figure something out in the January window, if they even have any kind of cash to pay for any players, or he's just going to have to pull something out of his hat to keep up. And then I also think that the Timo Werner curse, Chelsea was very aware of it. Like, I like the guy, but he may be just one of the worst players. Just like, we always dog on Adama, but Timo's basically the same thing. Just can run.
He's great. He's great in FIFA.
Yeah.
I was like, Timo can't finish a ball either. All he can do is just run straight, and that's about it. So I don't know.
It's like Borat. My neighbor gets a German player from Chelsea. I get a German player from Chelsea. Who's
Jay, I'll I'll agree with you on the Timo Werner, because obviously, you know, it's comical, his lack of finishing. But I will disagree on Solanke. I think, probably slightly overpaid. I mean, that's a high cost. Fair enough on
English
there.
tax, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That
English
premium, right? But I think he's going to be integral to them. I saw shades of Kane in that game. I mean, the way he was linking up with Brennan Johnson, the way he's going to be linking up with Son throughout the season. Obviously, he had the injury, right? And it was a shame. And you know, Ange said in a press conference after the injury, you know, he plays 60 odd games or whatever in a row for Bournemouth, no injury at all. The second he moves here, his ankle gets clipped in the first game, and it takes a bit of time to recover and be at your sharpest, because A, you're fighting an injury, and B, you're fitting into a new team and system, right? And with Bournemouth, everything flowed through him, right? He was this pivotal kind of figure, especially when the manager had said to him at Bournemouth, let's do less link-up play and more goal scoring, and you could see that last season, right? You know, Spurs is going to be slightly different. There's going to be the expectation that he does link up, which he does very well. But I think it's that he's going to come across, especially when you look at how some clubs like United and others have spent money. I think there's going to be seen as quite a shrewd piece of business towards the end of the season. And, you know, what can you say in terms of a fantastic team talk from Brighton? You know, I've watched a load of games at the Amex because my college campus, you could see the stadium from it, and the atmosphere is really good. And it's not the kind of fan base you'd think, oh, they're going to get really riled up or aggressive, but they are a fan base that really do back a team and they support a team really well. Yeah. And it's really positive, you know, enthusiastic support. So yeah, you know, they were frustrated at halftime, because who wouldn't be? I've actually seen that game, Tottenham at Brighton. That was one of the last games I saw before moving out here, and that was good fun. But it was a comfortable Tottenham win. And
first play, you're like, I got to get out of this.
I know, yeah, they did win. That was the strangest thing that game. But you know, it's interesting. I don't think anyone saw after that quality play. You know, Brennan Johnson. Talk about players who are in form. Okay, yeah. Cole Palmer. You know, Saka. Let's add Brennan Johnson to that list of players who are in red hot form. Mbermo, that's 4 who are just scoring goals for fun. And you see, I watched the highlights earlier, and you see the first half. It's okay. You know, they're all over them. Maddison is a player who looks back to his really brilliant, like creative, expressive best. Like, he's a player I'd want in my team, is James Maddison. And then, you know, it falls apart. And that's the Spursy thing, right? You can have it going all your way. You can have all the confidence, all the momentum, and you just get knocked, or that momentum gets shifted for a minute, and things can collapse really quickly. And I think that's how I would define Spursy, is it's all going your way, and the second it gets pushed, where's the backbone? Okay, it's 2-1. Okay, we'll make it 3-1 to you. It's 2-2. Go out and win it. Don't go and lose the game. Yeah. So, and those issues, you know, Ndogi had a horrible game at the back, so many defensive issues. I mean, those goals, just like Brentford Wolves, right? They were poor goals to concede. So a lot of issues for them. But final thing, look at their other results. They brushed us aside. They brushed United aside. If they had won this, we'd be looking at Spurs in a very different way today. We'd be saying, wow, 3 wins in the league on the bounce. They look red hot. But because they were Spursy, we're saying the opposite, right?
And I think it's kind of like that. It's psychological too, I think, because, you know, when it becomes 2-1, I'm sure that team is like, uh-oh, we're going Spursy again. I'm sure they're not saying that, but, you know, I'm sure it's in the back of their head. They're like, uh-oh. And, you know, you can see how momentum changes, and that's why it's the beautiful game. Gunnar says it's shocking because they have a good defensive unit. The problem is, and we've been there, and this is what I want to ask you guys, and we'll go around because, I mean, we've all had different managers along the way. I want to kind of like get your guys' preference and stuff. Ryan is gathering the entire family to see the Brenford fan. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. But no, I mean, I think when they played that high line, regardless of what happens, I know, like, I'm really torn on this. I want to get your guys' take. We're probably going to touch up on this tomorrow morning as well on the morning show, but holy cow, that's a bit small. But one thing, like, they were asking more about Slot, because obviously everybody's constantly asked to compare him and Klopp. And one thing he said is with Arne, he sometimes makes changes and adapts depending on the team we're playing against, whereas with Klopp, the style of playing was always consistent. We imposed our way of playing. So you can kind of go both ways, right, Jamie? I mean, you can kind of say, we do what we do. If we do it well, we're going to win. But at the same time, I would, like, for example, when you're up 2-0 and you're Spurs, maybe pull the lineup back a little bit, knowing you're up 2-0. Are you a fan of, like, your manager, your team playing the same style regardless of what the hell happens and have belief in themselves? Or adjust as needed, even if it does mean you're doing certain things that you normally would not do.
I quite like Ange's style of playing, to be honest. Like, it is very open. It's probably incredibly nerve-wracking, especially with all
I was
the
going to say,
baggage.
would you like it if it was Chelsea? It's
all
fun
the
to watch.
baggage of Spurs are carrying of being Spursy, but he does have a style of playing. I often think results really skew how we feel about things like this. If you're winning, no one's arguing. As soon as the results start going against you, you think of it a completely different way. Some of the best managers have been ones that adapt. Others have been managers that go about their way. Jose Mourinho, one of the most successful managers in the Premier League. Park the bus. That's what my wall is for behind me. Others adapt, and I think there's no perfect way. But I think he knows his squad better. That he knows his style, his squad, what they practice day in, day out on the training ground. And if they do not practice a defensive scenario where we're 2 up, we got to protect a lead, kind of like Sunday League. Let's stay solid next 5, lads. If he's not doing anything like that, then perhaps that is a very bad plan to employ on the fly in a game. Maybe they should have a backup plan. Who am I to say? But it makes it entertaining for us, doesn't it, watching Spurs? And,
when there's
that game, I think Brighton are also a really good side, and I think they're just as naive. I mean, when they were playing against Chelsea, they'd win it back in our own area and score. Like they're playing that high of a line. So when you've got 2 high lines playing against each other, it's fire with fire, and it's a goal fest. So I think both teams are going to be exciting to watch, but it's going to be nerve-wracking if you're a supporter of either one.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of like difficult to kind of keep that up and be successful.
Yeah.
Funny you mentioned Mourinho, for example, who is now, like the manager of my team back home, Fenerbahce.
Yeah.
And I mean, he is very pragmatic with what he does. He's the complete opposite. Like, he's going to go after you when he wants to. Once he takes the lead, he's going to be like, because I mean, I watch a lot of his press conference and stuff. Now, I've always liked him. I know like a lot of people dislike him, but I've always had like a sympathy to him, even when I watched that documentary with the Spurs and stuff like that. Because I think people don't like it because he's like, I mean, he has a huge ego and calls things as they are. And, and he's too honest, maybe. And people, we bitch at people when they give us the standard issue answer, and then we bitch at them when they're too honest. So, but yeah, I mean, he basically flat out says, do you want the 3 points or do you want to look good? Because we got the 3 points. And I get that. It is not fun to watch. It's a lot more stressful, especially when he's like a manager of a team like he was at United, like Fenerbahce, who's expected to play attacking football all the time, regardless, kind of a thing. But Lego Head over there, Alan, seems to have no problem, like, parking the bus when needed and stuff. He seems a bit more, he can't adjust himself. He's always like running around like a maniac. But on the pitch, it feels like he can kind of change how you guys play based on the scenario.
I think part of what Arteta is so good at is being able to adapt to the teams that he plays against and adapt in the situation as well mid-game. He goes in with a set game plan in mind, of course, but he has had an opportunity to instill these players with a different set of tactics for each given opportunity, each given team. We can easily do an Ange ball and just have high lines and still be 10 men down. And, instead of winning or instead of drawing 2-2 against City, we'd lose, 3-5, 5-2 against City that day. So, I mean, yeah, I think part of it is Ange's like reluctance to just I don't know, like it doesn't make any sense to me to not adapt to the situation of the game. You're up 2-0, and the idea is you sit back a little bit. Yeah, you try to impose your game. I'm not saying to stop attacking. Like I'm one for like putting them to the sword and everything. But the idea of like all of a sudden you're 2-1 and you're not going to do anything to sit back and protect that lead, or even go for it when you're 2-2. It's just, it's mind-boggling to me. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And I think we're talking earlier about mentality as far as Spurs. Like the great Giorgio Chiellini said, it is the history of the Tottenham. And it's just like whenever something goes wrong, it starts with the fans. It literally 100% starts with the fans. I was watching reaction videos of people in the stadium at the Amex just going, "Oh, this is it." They went 2-1. They were still winning. You can still root on your team. You can still sing for your team. But as soon as that ball went in for Brighton, the first goal, they were just like, "Nah, it's over. We're done. We're gonna lose this game. We're gonna draw this game." The mentality starts there, then it creeps into the players. The players, they have their own mindset already that they have been with, like the long-term like players of that team, like Heung-min Son, like he's the captain of this team. He's seen this before. He also gives up immediately. Like it's this whole mentality thing. And I think Ange Postecoglou in any other team would be amazing because the winning mentality would be there. With Spurs, he's not going to be able to impose anything because it is their history to just bottle things like this. To have
Shay's in
leads.
here. God damn, man. Take it easy. He's probably listening or some shit. We're gonna get but that's like chicken and egg, isn't it? Because you gotta win to get there, but to get there, you gotta win. So it has to start somewhere. You gotta get almost like break the leg somewhere to get it started. So I mean, you have to start somewhere because unfortunately, otherwise you're chasing your tail. But Steve Cook says the laptop story was, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Fenerbahce had a goal called off for offside, and it didn't even really go to VAR properly. There's a lot of shadiness that happens against Fenerbahce and Pro Galatasaray back home, and it's kind of like well known at this point. He literally froze the screen on the laptop, put it in front of the big ass camera on the sideline, lowered the camera to look at the laptop. He got a yellow card for it, but yeah, that's classic. And you know, when he's for your team, man, you love that shit because it is like a good thing. Unai, how does Unai roll with those? He kind of comes across as the more stubborn kind of dude, especially when it comes to lineups and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's. I mean, Alan knows too. Like for him, like one of my biggest, concerns with him is rotation. He will run these guys ragged, which is fine. This is their job, but then at some point you gotta make adjustments to bring in some fresh legs or do something to. It's like I said, if you are trailing in a game, you got to switch it up. I will say he does make adjustments in the sense of like that. If we are down, he'll start attacking more, kind of park the bus, kind of like Jose did. But it's the same with that. Like you said with Ange, he wants to ride and die by the sword, which is fine. But I think his players, how Alan said, need to, also get that mentality through it. I think that's what's wrong with United. Like I think Ten Hag has a vision of how he wants to play it. They just cannot do it. And the fans are, they've gotten so negative over the time. Like that, it does make a sense because we were there with Villa Park when we were getting relegated. Like you could see how bad it was. The fans are there. The negativity is all around. The players feel it. The coach can only do so much. Like they're trying and trying. And at the point, they're just going to give up because they're like, well, I can't do anything. So with Unai, he's come in and done that stuff. So it's good to see. Hopefully he can keep it up. But I have a feeling with these Champions League games coming up, he's going to have to adapt to those. He's got to realize, hey, I got talent in the squad, but when you have to play Europe's elite that play different styles that we don't see in England, like, playing these Italian teams, nobody in England plays that kind of style of soccer anymore. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, like I used to feel like Arsenal was like that in terms of, I mean, that's one thing that Lego Head, I think, has been able to do is, that kind of negativity for the most part. I mean, that's why Arsenal TV is famous, right? Because, it was constant bitching and moaning. And that was the stadium. I mean, we're talking about this when we went away to United. And we were like, you can turn Old Trafford on United now. Like you can get an early goal and turn the fans off and actually get them on your side almost, be a negative. And Arsenal used to be the same way. Like you could go to Arsenal and have those fans turn on the team like that once things were not looking good. I think his biggest thing has been able to kind of turn that and have like more belief. And that takes time. And honestly, that takes time. You got to give time to the manager as well. That's why all these people pop out of everywhere every 4 or 5 weeks and asking for a new manager. Well, this shit takes time. But Glenn, how about you? I mean, I know in some ways you guys are like I don't care what Alex says. You guys like an entertaining team to watch, but in similar to Fulham, at times I feel like it is a bit naive as well. And it's almost too open. Would you rather have a manager occasionally adjust that, or it's just freaking fun to watch?
Well, yeah, it's a good point because historically, I mean, in our Premier League era, Thomas Frank isn't a manager I would describe as somebody who is, overly attacking. That's as it actually wasn't really our style necessarily. First couple of seasons, really, it was very much, our styles actually, our formation tactics have adapted. Obviously, the longer we've been in the Premier League, what we usually do is a 4-3-3 at home. We try and target those home fixtures, and usually, almost without fail, it's looking like a 5-3-2 away from home, right? 3 centre backs, get the wing backs pushing up high and overlapping. The problem is Frank has really had to, really make lemonade out of lemons for so long now because we just have not had the personnel that fit these systems because of the injuries, right? So crucial to our system when we first came up was these quick win backs, right? Bombing up and down. Rico Henry, Aaron Hickey, these are 2 essential players to us, right? Having pacey fullbacks and playing on the break, playing on transition is essential to the kind of Brentford model, as we've seen the last few years. We haven't had access to players with that pace. We haven't had access to fullbacks, especially, who are quick, who can play on the break. We've got Aya there, or, Van der Berg, players who are just taller, slower. We've tried to make the most out of Mads Ruslev, who's probably a player with quite a low ceiling for the Premier League, really. And he's fine, he's adequate, but nobody's going to be signing him from us, right? He just does a very fair job there. So we've really been, kneecapped in some ways with the formations and, tactics that we've been able to put out because we've just been so hollowed out. However, I do think at the minute, Brentford you'd probably describe as a team up to even this season as a team who are pretty defensively robust and do make it hard for teams to score. And I have been disappointed this season that we've seen a kind of erosion of that. And sure, we're still playing this kind of fabulous, quick fire, early scoring football, but we are being hit, as you've kind of mentioned. We are being hit on the break ourselves quite easily. We are looking a little bit more vulnerable at the back. And I'm not quite sure what that chalks up to because, injuries can only go so far, but that's been frustrating. But I will say that Thomas Frank is a manager that utilizes formations. He utilizes his bench. He is not too dogged or static. I think it's been a case of, hey, we've had to make do with players that don't necessarily fit the kind of football we do want to play, that makes you quick, that lets you. A key part of our tactics have been letting the opponent have the ball. First couple of years in the Premier League, hey, we don't care if we have 30% possession, 20%. It doesn't matter because we'll defend rigidly and we'll hit you on the break. But that's been changed a little bit this season, and we've scored goals, sure, but we've definitely looked very soft at the back as well, which has been a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the build-up that I always feel like it's very risky, right? And it's kind of like opens yourself up to teams like Liverpool and, like City and Arsenal who are going to press up top and you're going to lose the ball unnecessarily, concede a goal while now you're behind the 8 ball kind of thing. But like I say, similar to what Jamie was saying earlier, like Brighton, Tottenham, I put Brenford in that category too. Not because they play a high line and stuff, but I feel like they play good football to watch overall, hence, and that's what it's usually open, hence the 5-3 game and stuff. But let's look at the standings real quick, and then if we do have time, there's one other topic I want to get to. But up top, Liverpool looks good. I don't know. I don't know. I think the opinions vary. A lot of people say obviously the schedule was kind of favorable, but then again, you only play the games that are on the schedule. If anything, that Forest game really hurts a lot more because I feel like that could have been at least a draw, at the least end up like the Chelsea game where you just could not get one more to win kind of a deal. But either way, like Steve says, it's top of the table. I mean, you can't expect for more. And I think nobody, well, I'll ask you guys, did you guys expect at this stage for Liverpool to be where they are, regardless of the ease of schedule, just based on the fact that Klopp is gone? Jamie, as a Chelsea fan, did you expect the drop off, or are we just? I mean, it's almost I would almost argue that some things have improved play wise. But go ahead.
Yeah, I expected a little bit of a drop off. He's basically playing with Klopp's team, so you didn't bring anyone in, so that team, kind of like some of the teams that are senior, there's a lot of seniority there. They probably could play without a manager for a small amount of time. But I think coming in and making some changes and seeing improvements in players who very much were squad players, like Gravenberch is suddenly a stalwart in the Liverpool defense. Yeah. I had never picked him out and thought I'd be scared of playing against him. So I think certain aspects have been really encouraging for Liverpool. My expectation was that they would drop off, not to the level that they would be out of European contention, but that they would be third or fourth, something like that. So it's early days. I think they probably still don't have the firepower to beat or to top City, but to be top after however many games we've had, 5 or 6, I think
Seven
yeah,
already.
7. Very, very, very well done. I think that's an A grade for a new incoming manager.
How about you, Alan? Were you like one down, one to go in terms of teams to deal with?
I thought there was a lot of enthusiasm when Arne got the job. I mean, even Klopp was singing his name when he was leaving and retiring in the last game. I thought there was a lot of good positive energy there. I think the players that you guys got last year, especially with Gravenberch and Sabasai, those are really good midfielders, really good players. Those are the players that I always look for in FIFA. So, that's how I knew about them as well. And I was sad that we weren't able to get them, but whatever. But the truth be told, I think you guys have a really good team, and I think you guys are about to, face a test coming up. I know Chelsea is Chelsea. I'm not gonna, disrespect them with how well they've been doing in the league so far. And you got Arsenal ourselves in the 27th. I'll be there. So hopefully that's the end of the run right there. But we'll see what happens.
It could still be what Jamie's saying in third and fourth. I don't know. I'm just trying to get not too excited. But I don't know, Shay. We were going into the season. Should kind of like when we went into last season, we were like, hey, it's a brand new midfield. It's going to take time. But then we were like, wait, what? And then we were suddenly like challenging for everything. And this year it was kind of like, oh, it's a new manager. It's going to take time and stuff. In some ways, not signing anybody probably has been good for this team. But it's a rare thing for a manager to take over a team that was doing well. Usually when they take over, it's a shit show. But at the same time, sometimes it's harder to take over something going good and make it better. It's a lot easier to clean shit up because you can only make it better.
Yeah, I would say, like I said, definitely, I would say lucky and just a blessing, because it could be in United's position. You have somebody replacing somebody that's been a stalwart, that has imposed their system for so long, gotten everybody accustomed to how they play, how they're used to it. And he's kind of come in, put a little bit of his spin on it, but the players all saw the vision. They say, hey, we don't have to worry about learning something probably too much more different than what Klopp was going. It's just like, hey, we've had the experience. We've played with each other. Like you said, I think not bringing in anybody probably helped, because this team has had all that chemistry built together. You're not bringing in 3 or 4 players that the new coach wants to impose his system. He's like, hey, I'll work with what I got right now. If I need to bring in something in January, I will. And you'll let the team know, because he's got 6-7 months technically 3 months of actual game time, but he's had, whenever he came in, he's probably saw him play from the time he got announced. But then, like you said, you could have been in United's position. Hey, you're replacing Sir Alex. He told them to give David Moyes time. They did not. The fans turn on him instantly. He didn't even get to implement a system, and look what's happened. They have been in a nosedive ever since. Bring in very good coaches. You can't say every coach they brought in has been very solid. Ole was whatever, but he did well. You bring in Jose Mourinho, you throw him under the bus. Then Ten Hag, for what it's worth, he was a good manager at Ajax. Yes, it's 2 different clubs, but somebody doesn't win that many games without showing promise and being really well. So I think it worked out for him. Like you said, if you can maintain it, that'll be awesome. We all are all praying for City's downfall. So this may be the best first-year coach of anything, almost any sport, even in NFL and college football. Nobody comes in year 1 and wins something. Has potential to win something and, do so well. Everybody has growing pains. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, couldn't ask for a better start, says Steve. Realistically, we have a lot of growing to do in the system. And I honestly, Glenn, it's been, maybe he will do more changes. First of all, he had a very short off season. We always talked about getting a new manager with the Euros going on and stuff like that, Copa America, blah, blah, blah. A very short time to make changes. Maybe a full off season, he'll make more changes. But, if you took over Liverpool after watching last season, you'd be like, what seems to be the problem here? You guys are always conceding the first goal. Well, let's fucking stop that first, and the rest will come. And honestly, he's kind of done that. We don't, apart from the offside goals that we get every third minute, it feels like. We don't get scored on where you have to dig yourself out of the hole, and there's a more of a control to the system.
Yeah, he's getting the fundamentals right. I think that's been the clearest kind of stamp of his authority on the team. And I mean, there was one moment, right? Was it first 45 minutes of the season? Kwanzaa, centre back, was losing the duels against Ipswich. And he said, I'm the new manager. I'm going to say, this is my team. Hauls him off at half time. Konate comes on. Konate's looked really solid so far this season, has chipped in with, attacking returns as well. And for me, to see a new manager do that, and, I feel maybe he could have sugarcoated it a little bit nicer just because he's a young player he's pulling off. But hey, I think he saw that as his opportunity to say, this is my team, and I want to get the best out of everyone. And that involves having centre-backs who are going to be physical, who can win aerial duels, because that's key to my system, is being much better and tighter at the back. And we've seen that. And I think you're right. I mean, I think he's done an amazing job of getting, there's plenty of hard fixtures to come and plenty of challenges ahead, of course. But to get players, even like Luis Diaz, playing with such confidence, and to see him scoring so fluidly, and yet even saying to the press, hey, this might just be a hot streak for him, essentially. Like, hey, we actually he needs to keep this going. He actually recognizes that, yeah, it's a hot streak, but essentially implying, ask me about how he's doing in a couple more weeks when we've played some of these tougher teams, right? I think he's really come in, feet on the ground. I think he's felt very grounded. And there was that interview, that iconic interview, right, at Old Trafford, when he, after the United game, when he basically just ripped their tactics to shred in about 3 minutes. And everybody was like, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows tactics. He knows the basics. And, Liverpool are a team with a hell of a lot of attacking flair players. I mean, you can rotate Diaz with Gakpo, as you guys know. You got Salah, of course. Even up front, you've got Jota for clinical finishing. If you want some chaos, Darwin Nunez is usually on the bench. He can score as well. So you've got a lot of exciting players for him to work with. But I do feel that his vision for the team is partially being realized already after just a handful of games, which I think is so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, the schedule was easy, so you don't want to get too excited. But at the same time, I mean, like Jamie was talking about earlier, sometimes, you're like, these are the games we lose, or these are the games we draw. And let's face it, Liverpool's one of the biggest problems has been losing points to, like, at home, like tying games that they should win and get the 3 points out of, and then ends up losing the title to the cheaters by like 1 or 2 points and stuff. So it's, that's one thing that I think at the same time you have to be happy with those wins and say, hey, we're actually getting something done over here. So yeah, so far so good. Like I say, you don't want to get too excited, but definitely good signs overall. And yeah, this team might be able to compete for some things as we go. Arsenal is third, a point behind, right behind City. Are you happy with where you are right now, Alan, or did you expect to be like at least 1 or 2 or whatever? I mean, mind you, it's early going, but
it's early going. I'm happy with where we're at. I'm not too stressed. It's the
so
early.
if it ends like this third, you're all cool,
oh,
right?
Yeah. I didn't say that. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So we'll see what happens. I mean, again, like the result. Looking back at the result against City, it would have been amazing to have won. We would have been top right now at 20 points. But no, actually, it would have been 19 points. Sorry. We would have been top of 19 points, 1 point ahead of you guys, 2 points ahead of City. And then, that would have been amazing. But that's the past, and you can't change anything. Where we're at now is where I expected in the sense that we would be competing going into the second international break and still in the fight.
I mean, Villa. Actually, hold on. Yeah, Chelsea is up there, which we're not used to that. Chelsea is up there now. Normally, we kind of gone towards like the 9 or 10 over there. But I mean, I'm assuming, Jamie, that you are thrilled with where you guys were at, knowing change of a manager again, change of a system again, 85 players in the squad, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was skeptical about Maresca. It seemed like his main qualification was having stood next to Pep Guardiola and hopefully gained something through osmosis.
It
but
works,
I think Chelsea fans.
Yeah, even Lego Head got it. So
his style. You can see what he's trying to do. He managed the squad far better than Pochettino did, and he's been able to stamp some authority. And these are the players I want. Is it how we'd want to see some of our homegrown players treated? No. But if you're a manager, you've got to deal with a squad. You can't be successful trying to manage 44 players in a training, like where you've got 11 subs for each side on your 11-on-11 in training. I think he's done he's made some decent progress, and I think I'm excited about how it looks. We graduated from being one of 2 banter clubs in the Premier League now that Man United own that title on their own. And I think this is probably where we're going to fight, kind of 3rd to 6th, I would say, kind of the edge of the Champions League places, all the way down to kind of Europa, maybe into conference, depending on how Villa, Newcastle, Brighton, Spurs. I think the standard of the league has elevated and condensed, I'd say, this year. So we're likely going to see a lower points total win the league. But I think being in the conversation for European places is an absolute must for Chelsea in our business model. And it's optimistic to see us hit the ground running. I think Chelsea fans saw us get better towards the end of last season, the first time we'd done so in 2 years. So suddenly to see us part ways mutually, obviously, with Pochettino was concerning. And everyone thought, oh God, just as we got it together, we're back to square one. And we all knew what square one looked like, and no one liked it. So the fact that we managed to skip a few steps and seem like we've picked up where we left off is really encouraging. So 4th after 7 games would definitely take that.
I mean, Shay and Alan know we spent the entire year last year, every episode talking about who's shittier, Chelsea or United. Like, that was like the conversation really almost like weekly. So getting out of that conversation, like who is the shittiest of them all is United now. So, I mean, that's a step in the right direction. I really thought that was a bad move to get rid of Pochettino right when he kind of cleared things up. But it'll be interesting. I think you guys are on the same boat. The truth is going to come out when a couple of poor scores come back to back or something like that, and see if everything is still holding together or the cracks are starting to show. I feel like Liverpool is on the same boat, to be honest with you. Everybody gets along. Everybody loves the new system. Everybody loves everything new when things are going good. The moment things turn south, things change. But Villa is 5th, right? We're about, I think, like last year. I'm assuming you're happy with this, Shay, but is there a lot of concern about now that you're in the Champions League and that really just got started, that shit is going to start accumulating? Like, you watch a game like this weekend, you're like, man, like if we go away to Crystal Palace or something like that after the Champions League game, it can start to take its toll.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even the week before we played a switch, Drew, everybody was like, what's going on? Then we play one of the best games midweek against Bayern. I'm just like, oh, okay. And then you play.
Do you think, by the way, that's on the players?
Like,
is that on the players where they kind of like, because like most of those players, the Champions League is thing new to them. So while you're playing Ipswich, you're like, Tuesday is going to be awesome. You know what I mean? Like there's like sometimes players look ahead. Is that a part of that?
A little big head, be like, all right, we're playing a European powerhouse versus Ipswich, who we've never, played once or twice. Also just think lack of preparation, like Tuesday or that game against Ipswich, like Diego Carlos, probably one of the worst players I've ever seen play. Then he plays probably the best game he's ever played against Bayern, and all the fans like he's a big game player. Like that inconsistency is going to hurt because we don't have enough depth. Because Konsa got hurt, like I think 10 minutes into the match against United, so now he's gonna have to play with Powell the whole time. Then the only backup we have
Carlos was hobbling too.
The only backup we have is Tyrone Mings, who has been out for over a year with a blown knee. So it's gonna come back and maybe affect us a little bit that way. That's why I'm kind of concerned of just, hey, Emery has to pick what he wants to truly focus on. Yes, we want to win something. So do you go for the cut matches? Do you want to keep staying in the Champions League? This is a big thing for us, but you also got to pick and choose your battle. If we make it far, that'll be awesome. But then do we have the depth to maintain? And we are coming back. I think Mings and Boubacar or Kamara are coming back. So that's 2 players that we haven't had for a while. It'll just be interesting to see how he gets them back into rotation. But like you said, I'm fine with 5th. I think I said that at the beginning of the year. I will take it. I'll take the European, if you can make the quarters, that'll be awesome, just because we haven't seen that in years. And it's just going to help the club getting built, because like then he's going to use that for transfers. Like, hey, we've got to the quarters. We just need 2 or 3 more players. If you can maintain, this is what we're going to do. We can start competing. So
out of curiosity, let me ask you this as a Villa fan, because I know like we talked about this in the past for us, like Champions League or Premier League, like which one would you want more and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, like Champions League, like is Villa going to want, but initially when you're trying to be pragmatic, you're like, hey, we got to make sure we're still competing, so we're back here again, right?
Yep.
But now you start the Champions League the way you started, you're like, well, we gotta keep going now, like, because you're like really doing really well. Is there kind of like that in the fans where you're like, you know what, dude, fuck the Premier League, we got 6 points, let's keep going on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard because, like I said, you don't know what you want. Because, like, if you make the miracle run, you become the champions of Europe. Like, nobody's ever going to take that away from you. I'll give that to, I think Chelsea had that one year. Like, you guys were, struggling in the league, but they won the Champions League, and that's all that matters, truly, at the end of the day, for that part. They maintained to stay in the top 10. They weren't any, like, obviously relegation. I think it was the year Spurs either finished fourth, and they got booted out of the Champions League because Chelsea made that miracle run and they won it. So, like, if that happens and Villa do that, I will be ecstatic because, they maintain, like, hey, as long as you finish top 10, but somehow win the Champions League, that'll be a huge accomplishment. So, we'll see what happens.
Like I say, that was a huge win.
I would love to see both, but I'll have to flip a coin.
Brentford's 11th. Alex isn't here, so what would you tell Alex if he was in terms of how the season is going to continue? I mean, with the schedule getting easier on paper, will Brentford start to stack up some points and climb up?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Like, we had those 3 tough away games and played well. Performances were there, but the points weren't, and that's fine. And, those home games that you are expecting to get something out of, we've won 3 out of the 4 of them, which is huge for us, and scored a fair amount of goals in the process. I'm delighted with where we are. Our next fixture could be Ten Hag's farewell party. We've got United away straight after the international break. So that'll be a tricky one. I mean, regardless of who's in charge, going to Old Trafford's never straightforward. But then we have a really favourable run. We've got Ipswich Town at home, which is a team that a lot of sides would be hoping to get a positive result from. We've got Fulham away, which should be the easiest game in the league, I'd like to think.
Damn! Come on, next week. Yeah.
I was singing their praises last week. I'm joking. And then you follow that up with Bournemouth, Everton, and Leicester. And honestly, our schedule doesn't get particularly tricky looking down the fixtures until about January, where we have a couple of top 4 or 5 teams in a row. I mean, I'm not looking forward to Villa in December, but if you look at this end of October, November schedule, that's extremely kind for us. So, I think we're in a really good spot, and Bumo is, I think, joint second highest scorer in the league right now with Cole Palmer, I'm pretty sure, after Haaland. So, we've got a player who's in form, who's confident in front of goal, who's confident on penalties. I mean, it's amazing to go from Tony, who is the king of penalties, to somebody else who has a similar technique and a similar confidence. And I'll keep banging the injury fitness drums because it is really affecting us. But if we can still pull these results out when we don't have the perfect squad that we want to get from the stack of people in the injury room, then I feel really good about where we are. And as you said, we're playing attractive football. We're playing football on the front foot. We're trying to play in a positive way that people like to watch. So if we can cut out the mistakes at the back and keep playing positively, then I think we're going to be in for a really good run up until towards Christmas.
You better, man. Otherwise, Alex is going to give me a lot of shit because I said you guys are going to do good. But on our way out, we don't have Tonali's picks this week. We're going to save that for next week because obviously there are no games. We can do it for international games if you guys are really into gambling. But we'll leave that, give Tonali and Tony a week off. But what I want to get from you guys is who has shocked you the most in terms of where they are right now in the standings. I know it's only week 7 in, but then, we said that it feels like we just did this and we were like, it's only 4 weeks in. Well, now it's 7 weeks in. So, Jamie, we'll start with you. Who are you most shocked at in terms of where they are? And I don't even know, maybe we'll exclude Manchester United, or maybe it is normal that they are where they are at. But I'll let you pick which team.
I've got 2 teams. So first, I didn't see Wolves bringing up the bottom of the league. Wolves, they've survived for so long. I figured they would be more of the same. I am surprised about West Ham. They recruited pretty well. They won the transfer window with a lot of their recruitment, and yes, they won this week, and I think they were crowned a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Lopetegui has not looked great in their first handful of games, and I think West Ham aren't one for keeping managers around if they don't perform. So it's a new manager. Like perhaps he's going to find his feet, but it's not a great start compared to some of the other new managers we've talked about.
How about you, Alan? I mean, when you look at the standings over here, what sticks out at you? I'm assuming like nobody's really too shocked about the top three, right? Like everybody almost like had money on that one, and it was probably not a lot of great. Even Tonali wouldn't take that bet. It's not a lot of good odds. But from that point on, like, what is one team that you're like, what the hell are they doing there?
I'm actually going to say United because I thought for sure that they would be competitive. It's not like they weren't 3 or 2 years ago with when Ten Hag came on. They finished third that season. So I would expect that they would have been better this season. Ten Hag giving another year, winning another trophy at the end of the season against City. That would probably be the momentum right there to get them further up the table or to start the season really well. But they've just been a disappointment in my eyes. I think 14th is honestly, I'm surprised he hasn't been sacked yet. I was looking at the reports right now, seeing if we could breaking news, but he's not been sacked yet.
No, I mean, I was literally just watching before I came upstairs. There was a video from BBC about it wasn't like Sky Sport, but either way, about like the meeting they have monthly or whatever, and no announcements have been made, so it does not look like. I guess those two big draws, that big performance against Shea's Villa, really kept up. We're extremely disappointed in your boys.
What if I would ever hear those words uttered? Villa saved his job.
I do want to say one more team has kind of shocked me a little bit is Nottingham. They've come from in the relegation fight to now being in 10th, and that's pretty impressive for where they've been. So hopefully they can keep it up. Maybe they can go above Spurs at one point.
I swear, man. That's why people should be on the panel so they don't get fired when they're not looking. Shay,
I throw it at him when he's on.
Well, I would like with Jamie, like Wolves. I didn't think they were that bad of a team, but it's absolute pandemonium out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, quote unquote rivals of Villa. You love to see it because all they do is talk crap. But to go 0-9 or like or 0-6. Sorry, that's just absurd. I don't know what they're doing. And then
21 goals conceded.
21 goals. That's what I know. We talked about. I think a couple weeks ago we talked about that. What was it? Who was the team that really got last year that had the most? Was it Sunderland? They had a bunch of not Sunderland. Sheffield. They had like the most goals let in. I was like, Wolves are basically, I think, on the same path. Like you can't let that many goals go in without scoring. You gotta at least try to maintain the wall of defense back there. And then another one, honestly, Chelsea, like how we said, like the fact that they've actually, I know Jamie caught on it, they've actually steadied ship.
Yeah.
Maybe I think at the beginning we were kind of talking about that, like, hey, the new manager coming in and basically shutting out homegrown players and like Raheem Sterling, but it may have worked because I for one was on Raheem's side. Like I don't know what he did wrong. Yes, he's a high earner, but it may have worked out better because you have Jadon Sancho playing really well finally, which I'm sure United fans love seeing that. Just him actually showing his promise for once. So
I will say
those are the two teams, and then I'll say throw one more in there just for like Leicester, honestly, because we said the same thing.
Yeah,
that they might have gotten in trouble with the league. They pulled the fast one, which I love because the league was actively trying to ruin them, and they said, "Hey, go F yourself. We did this before we joined the Premier League, and y'all can't get us in trouble." And they've somehow, I know it's one win, but they're staying steady. So,
yeah, I mean, for where they're at, I think that's. I mean, yeah, I don't think I expected them to. I mean, honestly, like I said, we spent all year last year. I would not have been shocked if I saw the standings with United and Chelsea reversed. I kind of expected that more, I guess, because I felt United was for once going after some decent players. But I think the problem is, I mean, if it's shit in there, I mean, you can add all the chocolate in the world, it's still shit. So it really doesn't matter. I think that's what's happening, and that's why you take a guy like Sancho out of there. He's like, thank God, and he starts playing and stuff. And I think I'm shocked they're as bad as they are. My brother isn't, who is a United fan, but I think he's just playing coy. I think nobody, I don't think, expected him to be this consistently bad, I guess I should say. Like, nobody expected him to be like suddenly competing for the title, but everybody expected an improvement And I don't think anybody on the Chelsea side expected the improvement that they had. So how about you, Glenn?
Yeah, so stating the obvious, it is officially Man United's obviously worst start to a Premier League season on record, which speaks for itself. There's one club you guys haven't mentioned at the bottom that I'm really surprised that no one's touched on, which is Crystal Palace. I mean, you look at where they are, you look at their manager, right? Glasner, known for playing decent football, a lot of positivity around his appointment. People were just obviously sick of Roy Hodgson, for better or worse. They lost to...
they should have kept my friend Vieira.
Wow, yeah, gosh. We saw he was at the Fan Fest somewhere, wasn't he, on stage? But they did lose key players, right? Anderson at the back, and Elise is just banging them in for fun over in Germany with Harry Kane. But you look at this team, right? Dean Henderson saw the keeper. Gahey, people were chasing him. How much were Newcastle willing to pay for him? Wharton pulls the strings well. Nketiah, Sarr, Eze, Mateta. These are players of real international quality. And you're telling me they haven't won a game this season despite playing Leicester, West Ham, Everton? Yeah. I mean, are you kidding me? I think we've overlooked them in this conversation. I think they've had a shocking start this season, and they have a really good squad. So that's my standout pick for where they are. No wins so far. That's really surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of shocked how they played Liverpool this weekend. I mean, Crystal Palace is always a tough away game. Even when we're riding high, I mean, I always worry about I worry about every game, but I worry more about Crystal Palace away games. And it felt they seemed so timid the entire first half that kind of let us play. Whereas usually it's almost like they don't believe in themselves because they were not in your face going at you. Because you look at the squad from top to bottom, like you said, they should be, I mean, for them to be below Ipswich is kind of off. So I'll give you that. That's a good pick, I think. But and maybe hopefully they'll turn it around. Ipswich will turn around and Everton will go down the drain. But you never know. One can only hope. But that'll be it for us this week. We're not doing Tonali's picks. Obviously, we'll be back next week. I did have a couple of topics that I want to kind of like bounce around, general football and Premier League related. So we'll start with those next week and then finish off with our picks and look ahead to match week 8. Hopefully, no injuries for any Liverpool players during the national break.
No injuries to Arsenal players, please.
Yeah. Should we do that after the national break? Do like a little prayer session where we just like all hold hands and pray for no injuries. Yeah, hopefully
reach out to the camera.
And then we'll be hopefully we're not discussing that next week and talking about injuries, how it's going to affect the Premier League, and we kind of look ahead to match week 8. But thanks to all those commenting, following us, a lot of live followers today, but not as many likes. So give us a thumbs up on the way out, give us a follow as well, and then if you want to join the panel, we even have a Brenford fan, so there should be other teams out there. Everything should be represented over here. So send us a message as well. We got more Premier League content coming your way. And we'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Take care.